It's Tuesday, May 5th, 2009, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville. Produced and distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C., this is your NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about our show at our website, stash.norml.org, and continue the education and conversation on our blog as well. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. The podcasting and blogging technology for the NORML Daily Audio Stash is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. For your professional web design needs, visit redaphid.com. Good day, Stashers, and welcome to the podcast. We're glad to have you here. A few things before we get started with the podcast. First, I wanted to mention that 973 phone number that's going around the web. You may have gotten this in a text message or in an email about dialing a 973 number for a phone poll to support the legalization of marijuana. This is being run by a group called RH Brands, and they make a bunch of other telephone novelty phone lines, things like horoscope lines or psychic lines or whatever. But this number is not like a 976 or a 900 number where it costs you to dial it. It will cost you a long distance charge if you dial it, but no other sorts of fees apply. And it appears to be legit in that this company really does exist and they're not trying to scam you out of any money. I don't know what good a phone poll is going to do when presented to President Obama, considering that he's ignored all the other polls regarding legalization of marijuana, but at least this does not look to be a scam. Now, also, we've been running down some of the videos and reports from the Global Marijuana March that took place last weekend. We've got videos online from Chicago, Austin, Texas, and Boston, Massachusetts, as well as some reports from Philly, Iowa, Tennessee, Portland, Oregon, and some other locations. Get your reports and videos and pictures in from the march, and I'll be glad to post them right up here at the Daily Audio Stash. And if you want to catch all of them, just go to the search box at the top of the stash and type in Global Marijuana March, or look for the tag link for Global Marijuana March on any of those posts, and you'll get to see all of them. Also, because of yesterday's live performance from the Human Revolution, today we get a bonus in our daily Toker Tunes brought to you by MarijuanaMusicAwards.com. We'll get to have two songs today, Monday's original song and then the song scheduled for today. Now, coming up in the podcast today, we are going to take a look at your hemp headlines, including a look at America's insatiable appetite for psychotropic drugs and the impact that advertising may have in that statistic. We also look at a California field poll just out showing 56% of Californians supporting marijuana legalization. Our own Dude Master presents a fine essay on veterans returning from the war and their need for medical marijuana called Veterans Want Freedom, and a look at the online role-playing game World of Warcraft and its hypocrisy in allowing players to use and name themselves after alcohol, but not after marijuana. Today is our Government at Work Day, so today we're going to be speaking with Madeline Martinez, the Executive Director of Oregon NORML, who has some exciting breaking news from the city of Portland, Oregon. And as mentioned earlier, two songs for your daily Toker Tunes today. It's the growing truth about cannabis and the pulse of the cannabis community. And if you have any comments or suggestions, please send them in by email to stash@norml.org. Now, let's get ready. It's time for your NORML Daily Audio Stash.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 13 states today, and THCF has clinics in 8 of those states. Our doctors help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms such as multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help you obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Montana, and now Michigan. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
Now it's time to take a look at the latest stories about marijuana from news organizations across America and around the world in our NORML daily audio stash, Hemp Headlines. Americans' use of psychotropic prescription drugs more than doubled in a decade. Many more Americans have been using prescription drugs to treat mental illness since 1996, in part because of expanded insurance coverage and greater familiarity with the drugs among primary care doctors, U.S. researchers said on Tuesday. Really? It wouldn't have anything to do with the ubiquitous "ask your prescriber about new prescription Damatol" advertisements that we see on our TV? They said 73% more adults and 50% more children are using drugs to treat mental illness than in 1996. Among adults over age 65, use of so-called psychotropic drugs, which include antidepressants, antipsychotics, and Alzheimer's medicines, doubled between 1996 and 2006. Here are some other interesting stats from that time period. In 1989, drug companies spent $12 million on direct-to-consumer advertising. By 2007, the figure reached $3.7 billion. Direct-to-consumer advertising began in 1983, but that advertising was restricted only to the drug's brand name and an "ask your doctor" pitch. They could not describe what the drug would treat or how it would help a patient. But in 1997, the FDA relaxed rules on prescription drug advertising to allow the ads that we see now, where shiny happy people use prescription Damatol, pretty music plays and birds chirp, and in the last 10 seconds a muted monotone sped-up voiceover tells you all the side effects Damatol can cause. 70% of all direct-to-consumer advertising is television advertising, and 29% of all network news advertising revenue comes from pharmaceutical ads. Also, the average number of prescriptions per person in the United States increased from 7.3 in 1992 to 14.3 in 2006. Sherry Gliad of Columbia University in New York, whose study appears in the journal Health Affairs, said, quote, "What we generally find is there has been an increase in access to care for all populations," end quote. Gliad said expanded drug coverage under Medicare, the federal insurance program for the elderly, and the state children's health insurance program for poor children helped make such drugs more affordable. The study found the number of children diagnosed and treated for mental health conditions by their primary care doctor doubled between 1996 and 2006. Sure, better access could be a part of the increase, but you don't double the prescriptions per person and see a 50%, 75%, and 100% rise in psychotropic drug use among children, adults, and seniors respectively in just over a decade because government programs made those drugs more affordable for children and the elderly. In his book Death by Prescription, Ray D. Strand describes our, quote, self-medicated society, end quote, and how these pharmaceutical ads turn the patient into a drug seeker and the doctor into a dealer. Quote, Surveys reported in our medical literature reveal that when a patient comes into a doctor's office and requests a specific drug that he has seen advertised in the media, the doctor writes the exact prescription the patient requested more than 70% of the time. End quote. So let's say that a consumer who has been feeling a little sad lately sees a commercial for the antidepressant drug Zoloft. The commercial demonstrates the symptoms for depression, and the consumer identifies with them. Suddenly, he or she thinks, I'm not just sad, I'm depressed, which is a medical condition that can be treated by the prescription drug Zoloft. With this in mind, the consumer goes to the medical doctor and says, I've been really depressed a lot lately. And then the consumer recites the depression symptoms listed in the Zoloft commercial. I think I need Zoloft. So, according to Strand, there's a 70% chance the doctor will prescribe Zoloft, the exact prescription the consumer requested. That's how pharmaceutical commercials really work. They directly influence consumer behavior, yet drug companies claim they only educate patients, but don't persuade them to do anything. It's not just the patients that Big Pharma is seducing either. 15 to 20% of the American Psychological Association's income comes from pharmaceutical advertisements in its journals. Pfizer alone has 4,500 people in its sales force, which directly market these drugs to doctors through special promotions and free samples. And while Big Pharma spends $3.7 billion to influence you, they spend almost twice that, $6.7 billion, in advertising to doctors through these sales forces and in professional journals. And it works. $10.4 billion in total advertising is a small price to pay to reap the $227.5 billion spent on prescription drugs in 2007. Comparing the cost of the raw ingredients versus the retail cost to consumers, the markups on Paxil, Zoloft, Celebrex, Prozac, and Xanax are 2,900%, 11,000%, 21,000%, 225,000%, and 570,000%, respectively. The pharmaceutical industry is the third most profitable industry in America, according to Fortune magazine, trailing only communications and internet industries for the return on investment, with 2008 profits of 19.3% of revenues. The profits of the three largest pharmaceutical companies were $12.9 billion, $8.1 billion, and $4.8 billion respectively in 2008. When you know these facts, you begin to understand the monumental task of legalizing marijuana in this country. How far would that $227.5 billion in prescription drug spending drop if people had legal access to marijuana? I've already talked to many medical marijuana patients who report being able to kick 50% to 75% of their need for opioid painkillers thanks to cannabis. Marijuana works better for some people for anxiety and depression than Paxil, Zoloft, Celebrex, Prozac, and Xanax, and you can grow it in your yard. That little weed can replace a whole lot of pills that have nasty side effects like constipation, nausea, erectile dysfunction, and so forth, for which, of course, they'll write you another prescription. And it makes you happy, hungry, and sexy too. So why would the American Medical Association or American Psychological Association want to support medical marijuana and anger the big pharma that keeps their journals funded? Why would network television want to report positively on medical marijuana and anger the big pharma that keeps their news divisions funded? Why would some doctors want to support medical marijuana and mess up the freebies they're getting from the big pharma? The real reason marijuana is illegal has nothing to do with how it affects you or society. It's how it affects business. 56% of Californians support marijuana legalization. For the first time ever in a statewide field poll, a majority of state voters expressed support for legalizing and taxing marijuana. A poll released last week showed 56% of Californians support legalization. Earlier this year, Assemblymember Tom Amiano, Democrat of San Francisco, introduced legislation that would tax and regulate marijuana in a manner similar to alcohol. The Marijuana Control Regulation and Education Act, or AB 390, would create a regulatory structure similar to that used for beer, wine, and liquor, permitting taxed sales to adults while barring sales to or possession by those under 21. Amiano said, quote, "With the state in the midst of an historic economic crisis, the move toward regulating and taxing marijuana is simply common sense. This legislation would generate up to $1.3 billion in needed revenue for the state, restrict access to only those over 21, end the environmental damage to our public lands from illicit crops, and improve public safety by redirecting law enforcement efforts to more serious crimes. California has the opportunity to be the first state in the nation to enact a smart, responsible public policy for the control and regulation of marijuana." Though Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger has said he would not sign legislation legalizing marijuana, the state's ongoing billion-dollar fiscal crisis is making the idea of taxing legal marijuana to raise revenue, while reducing the strains of the grossly overcrowded prisons, more worthy of consideration for other legislators and voters. Then I expect Governor Schwarzenegger to turn himself into authorities for his possession and use of marijuana throughout the 1970s. What is it about elected office that makes former potheads turn into reefer-mad anti-pot zealots? They know that we know that they know pot's not what they're saying it is. Do they inject new politicians with some sort of serum derived from Harry J. Anslinger's blood? Is it like Bill Hicks said, that they take the new president to a private screening of the Kennedy assassination with footage shot from behind the grassy knoll and tell him to follow orders or take a bullet? Maybe they really do think that legalized marijuana would be disastrous to our economy, with Big Pharma and the legal judicial prison industrial complex relying so heavily on illegal pot, with entire drug testing and drug rehab industries built on prohibition, with timber, oil, paper, cotton, and textiles industries unable to compete with hemp, with television and medical journals dependent on pharmaceutical ads, and with low-skill, good-paying jobs lacking for the millions of young people who currently survive on prohibition profit, maybe legal weed really would wreck our economy. If so, it seems sad to me that the only way we can keep the fire of our economy burning is to stoke it with the sacrificed liberty and ruined lives of marijuana users who get caught. Both Governor Schwarzenegger and President Obama prove that using marijuana doesn't ruin your potential. In Arnold's case, his pot use may have been a performance enhancer for bodybuilding. Anti-inflammatory, pain relief, ease anxiety and stress, those are all good things when you're lifting hundreds of pounds of iron for hours a day. Arnold, let California legalize what you once said wasn't a drug, but a leaf. In a democracy, to quote George Carlin, shouldn't the people get what they want at least some of the time? Veterans Want American Freedom Back. An essay by Dude Master. In our Declaration of Independence, Jefferson declared to the world the right to live free is self-evident and given by a power higher than the government, and it was the responsibility of the government to protect those freedoms. According to this founding father, the government's only legitimate function is to protect our freedom. It exists only to prevent one person from intruding on the freedom of another. Our government itself now intrudes on people's freedom, and Americans legitimately live in fear of our government every day. This is a short commentary piece I've written in support of all veterans, but especially those who are returning home from war right now. As a retired military combat veteran of more than 20 years of service, I'm proud of you and welcome home. You've come home at a good time. Our country is currently in crisis, but the crisis is working to bring all Americans together in peaceful resolution. For those of you with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, you are going to face a challenge. I know most of you are going to say you don't have PTSD. You'll deny it until someday you'll stop and say, I'm tired of that train wreck of an incident playing over and over in my head. Then you'll ask for some help from the VA, and they will give you opium. Yes, that's correct. The Veterans Administration passes out antidepressants and opium, in pill form, like crazy. The only problem is, they don't make you feel better, and in fact, you might just want to kill yourself before getting better. Or, if you live in one of the states that has medical marijuana, you could see a qualified doctor to help you on your recovery, and he might just recommend medical marijuana. The catch? You can't go back to the VA. Veterans in states with medical marijuana laws are faced with an especially unfair decision. Use medical marijuana and leave the VA, or take the VA's medicine and stop using medical marijuana. Medical marijuana is the best medicine available for PTSD, and our own laws prohibit the largest group of potential patients this product could serve. Although the decision sounds fairly easy to make, it isn't. For instance, a soldier who had some serious medical issues as a result of a combat injury, in addition to PTSD, needs attention. If this soldier were to use medical marijuana, they would not be allowed to use the VA for anything, not even to treat their medical issues. So their choice may help them medically, but because of the antidepressants, they might kill themselves. It is the highest suicide rate profession in the world, being in the military. Besides, this being a very sticky technical issue, the long-term perception from the veterans is playing out in ways we never thought possible. As a member of several veterans organizations, I frequently interface with returning veterans and those who returned many years ago. The overwhelming consensus among veterans groups is their government has abandoned them and has trivialized their sacrifice. More than 70% of our soldiers are returning home with PTSD, with 94% of our returning soldiers having personally witnessed a violent and gruesome death of a friend or fellow service member. Out of that 70%, a measurable number of those people will take antidepressants, others will take opiates, some will take both, others will use illicit drugs, while most will drink heavily. Many will kill themselves, and it's likely that at least one will take their own life after taking the lives of their family first. We need to allow the Veterans Administration to give these heroes the choice of medicating with medical marijuana. They need help, and this is a non-toxic antidepressant that doesn't make one want to kill themselves. It helps one sleep, gain an appetite, and even alleviate some pain. Don't our heroes deserve it? Mr. President, do you still think this is funny? Online multiplayer game World of Warcraft promotes alcohol, but shuns safer marijuana. Blizzard Entertainment sells the most popular MMORPG in cyberspace, World of Warcraft. That's MMORPG, or Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. For those of you my age and older, think back to your old Dungeons & Dragons game, but instead of you and 5 geeky friends, a bunch of arcane rulebooks, 2-liter bottles of Mountain Dew, and funny-looking dice being thrown on a library table, imagine hundreds of thousands of people worldwide playing that D&D game online in real time. Players in this cyberspace world can become wizards and fighters and clerics and so forth, all your typical fantasy world Tolkien-esque stuff. Players can give themselves fantastic names, and as players gain power, they can join together and form guilds with fantastic names. So long as those player names or guilds are not in any way a slang reference to marijuana. A stasher named Thomas noted this policy when his online character's name was changed because it was a slang term for pot. And he never told me what the original name was, but maybe he'll chime in the comments. But as Thomas so adroitly noted, there are multiple references to different herbs in the game that are not only hallucinogenic, but way more potent and dangerous than marijuana, which, by the way, could be said about almost anything, all of which are illegal as well. There's even an herb you can become addicted to as well. Am I correct? After many emails to different employees at Blizzard Entertainment, Thomas finally got an answer. Thank you for your continued interest in how the World of Warcraft policies are created. I have looked at your account history and will do my best to answer any questions you have had regarding our naming policies. I understand that your concern is that your name was changed due to its association with a slang term for marijuana, while there are numerous references to alcohol within the game. Please understand that the naming policy currently prohibits the use of any name which refers directly or indirectly to illegal activity. As the use of alcohol is not illegal, names and activities associated with the use of alcohol are not currently against our policies. Sincerely, Carlos, Account Administrator, Blizzard Entertainment. So let me see if I understand this. You run a game where a person can become a fighter, name himself Skull Crusher, purchase a two-handed broadsword, and murder other people in battle, yet with a straight face you tell me you're concerned about Warcraft promoting illegal activity. Player characters can become rogues, whose skills include assassination, lockpicking, and thievery, but we can't have that rogue have a 420 in his name because we don't want to promote illegal activity. We can't promote illegal activity in the World of Warcraft, but for a significant portion of players, those under age 21, the promotion of alcohol does represent an illegal activity. Ironically, player characters can also become herbalists and use any number of plants with mystical or hallucinogenic properties like ghost mushrooms, black lotus, and death nettle. And they can sell those plants for a profit to alchemists, but we can't have any 420s anywhere reminding people of the illegal market for selling cannabis plants at a profit. Ultimately, the marijuana may be less harmful to you than the World of Warcraft itself. According to Stiftelsen Ungdomsvård, a Swedish youth organization specializing in game addiction, quote, World of Warcraft is the crack cocaine of the computer world, end quote. The Youth Care Foundation is about to release its report in which it labels World of Warcraft as, quote, the most dangerous game on the market, end quote. Author of the report, Sven Rollinghagen, says, quote, there is not a single case of game addiction that we have worked with in which World of Warcraft has not played a part, end quote. The poster child for the report is a 15-year-old Swedish boy who collapsed and suffered seizures after playing World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King for 24 hours straight. The report also has the backing of the Swedish National Institute of Public Health, which warns of the ever-growing increase worldwide of game addiction. I'm not a fan of throwing the word addiction around unless we're talking about physical withdrawal and severe craving akin to kicking cocaine, meth, heroin, OxyContin, Vicodin, or alcohol. So I don't buy the idea that World of Warcraft is like crack cocaine. But if we're talking about compulsion or dependence, then I'm willing to personally say that for some people, World of Warcraft is more dangerous than marijuana.
Dear Mr. President, last November you were elected on a platform of change. You promised the country reform on the political system. Well, let me tell you what NORML.org and many other Americans want changed. Marijuana laws. It was estimated that America made its 20 millionth arrest for marijuana possession this year. You want a real economic problem? How about the amount of money being spent on simple possession arrests? Incarcerating people costs taxpayers around $23,000 per year, and NORML estimates that up to $10 billion a year are spent on enforcement for mostly nonviolent offenders. Now let's imagine what would happen if marijuana was legal. Not only would we save billions each year on enforcement, but imagine the economic boost. You would produce jobs growing, selling, and tax dollars coming in from the regulation of marijuana. I'm not saying let people loose to sell on the streets. Put government regulation into tax and control at sales like alcohol. Street dealers are the problem, not a guy with a gram in his pocket. Put in harsh punishments for people who drive under the influence, and stop punishing people who enjoy marijuana safely in their home. Mr. President, if you really want change, legalize marijuana.
The battle to end adult marijuana prohibition can sometimes seem endlessly frustrating and impossible to overcome. One way we bond as a community and draw strength to continue is by rejuvenating our spirit through art and music. The Marijuana Music Awards exist to recognize those sonic artists in all genres of music who feature a ganja-friendly message to motivate and inspire all the cannabis community. Our daily Toker tunes, brought to you by MarijuanaMusicAwards.com, feature the finest in blues, rock, jazz, hip-hop, rap, reggae, country, bluegrass, and dance music to enhance that 420 feeling and refresh all you stashers for another day on the front lines of the drug war. Enjoy this cut from MarijuanaMusicAwards.com and visit our blog at stash.normal.org to learn how you can vote for your favorites and enter your Toker tunes in the 2009 Marijuana Music Awards. right, Stasher's going to switch things up just a little bit since we've got 2 songs to play for you today. I'm going to put the first one right here. We'll play the Monday song, and then we'll go to our Government at Work interview segment, followed up by our Tuesday song. So this Message Monday, or yesterday, we heard, or should have heard, USA Weed Song by Wes Day. Wes Day's music is a blend of soul, funk, and acoustic. Based in Alabama, Wes is in love with the music industry. Wes says being a songwriter is what he does and who he is. Wes has a poignant message in today's acoustic song, which was nominated in 2007's Marijuana Music Awards. To keep updated about this increasingly popular artist, check out myspace.com/WesDayMusic. And registered Stashers, you can get an MP3 download of this tune. It's Wes Day with USA Weed Song.
Well, it started out a Friday night like any other Friday night. I got home from working all day long and I was looking to get a little tight. Got a call about some alcohol that was going on downtown. I called up everyone I knew and let them know where I could be found. Well, don't get mad and don't you curse, but this here's not the chorus. I think you're gonna need a second verse to understand where this is going. There was a foggy mist in the car, but it was clear out that night. Before I knew, the more red and blue come flashing from behind. Well, they took me in and the man said, we found this in your pocket. Now you're going straight to jail and there's no way to stop it. But then the DA came and said we could let you off scot-clean. All you got to do is roll on a big enough name. Well, I told him I had the biggest name he had probably ever heard. When he got close to hear what I'd say, all I said was Mother Earth. Mother Earth, yeah, she's the one to turn to when your bag is empty and you find yourself in need. You know, I heard she grows all of her own product. Hell, I even heard she manufactures her own seeds. In this land of the brave and home of the free, that's not really true because I can't smoke my weed. Land of the brave and the home of the free, that's not really true because I can't smoke my weed. Well, now potheads get a pretty bad rap for being slow and stupid people. But those cops bought every word I spoke. I was quite the slippery weasel. I heard that they went out that night and stopped every thug they could find. I'd love to see that DA's face when he caught his mastermind. Mother Earth, yeah, she's the one to turn to when your bag is empty and you find yourself in need. You know, I heard she grows all of her own product. Hell, I even heard she manufactures her own seeds. In this land of the brave and home of the free, that's not really true because I can't smoke my weed. Land of the brave and the home of the free, that's not really true because I can't smoke my weed. Land of the brave and the home of the free, that's not really true because I can't smoke my weed. Land of the brave and the home of the free, that's not really true because I can't smoke my weed.
Hello, this is Webb Hubble. Life insurance is now available for responsible marijuana smokers. For years, responsible marijuana smokers have not been able to access affordable life insurance products. NORML uniquely supports cannabis consumers. 2 carriers have already agreed to offer all of their traditional life insurance products at all levels without excluding individuals who smoke marijuana responsibly. Help NORML and help yourself. If you've been declined for life insurance, are paying above market premiums, or simply want to know what now may be available in the way of insurance for marijuana smokers, contact me at info@mclaughlinonline.com or simply call me at 202-293-5566.
Tuesday is our look at your government at work here at the Audio Stash. While the inevitable re-legalization of cannabis hemp will have to happen at the federal level, the steps leading to that destination take place at the state and municipal levels. We focus in on the initiatives, bills, and amendments regarding cannabis across all 50 states, and what activists like you are doing to enact a positive reform to our cruel and outdated marijuana laws. If you're working hard to make an impact in your city and state, please email us at stash@normal.org and let's share your local efforts with the worldwide cannabis community. Together, we can affect our government at work.
Pollution rises high into the sky. How can we still deny the truth?
Well, Stashers, it's 20 after 5 o'clock Pacific time, and I've been waiting a call back from Madeline Martinez from Oregon NORML regarding some important breaking news in Portland, Oregon from the mayor's office. Unfortunately, it appears that news has not yet broken. I haven't received the call back yet, and it is getting rather late, and it's time to post the stash. So we'll see if we can't get that story on for tomorrow's podcast. In substitution, I'm going to be playing this clip from William Buckman at the Philly NORML, New Jersey 420 Freedom Forum that took place a couple of weeks ago.
Attorneys are an extremely important contingent of NORML's work and the work of all marijuana law reform groups. We've got a great attorney with us today, somebody who's worked extremely hard on a number of social justice issues in New Jersey, including a landmark case in racial profiling involving the New Jersey State Police just a few years ago. I'd like to introduce NORML Legal Committee member William Buckman of New Jersey.
Thank you. I want to talk, I can't escape the irony of the fact that we are in the Constitution Center to talk about something that should have been legal and is a God-given right of every human being, be it marijuana or be it, or whether we call it medicinal marijuana or whether we call it just the right to live. I remember doing cases over the years, homicide cases, maybe other cases, where the right of self-defense is the oldest right that known history has, the right to live. And that's what the fight to legalize medicinal marijuana is. The right to live, the right to maintain one's self-integrity. I'd like to remind everybody here, particularly those of us from New Jersey, of course, our state slogan is arrive on vacation and leave on probation. At least it used to be with the New Jersey State Police. But, there's two things about New Jersey that come to my mind. Number one, the New Jersey Supreme Court pats itself on the back repeatedly in many of its case law or many of its cases when they talk about discrimination. They say New Jersey's number one goal is the eradication of the cancer of discrimination. It's time for New Jersey to eradicate the cancer of this type of discrimination, the discrimination between how people treat themselves, the discrimination between doctors who want to prescribe effective medicine and those doctors that just want to go by the rule book and prescribe only those things that have a million warnings on them, which marijuana would not have. We can look every night at the ads for medicines on television, and I love to listen to how quickly they talk. Well, in rare cases, it may cause this, and death. We can't say that about marijuana if it were advertised on television, and it's time for New Jersey to end this type of discrimination. Something else comes to my mind about New Jersey, and I remember when I first began litigation against the state police, the New Jersey State Police was organized, and in the preamble organizing the largest law enforcement agency in the state, it says one of their main goals was to succor the helpless. I don't know if any of you know what the word, or if we're all on the same page in what the word succor means. It means to comfort, to care for, to help those who are defenseless, to help those who are in pain or in need. It's time for New Jersey law to give substance to this notion of succoring the helpless. It is time for us to live up in so many ways to the things that we pat ourselves on the back about, our fights against discrimination and our desire to help the helpless. The fact that New Jersey is so far behind the line in legalizing medicinal marijuana is nothing short of a shame, and we should make New Jersey feel ashamed for this. You've heard from lawyers and distinguished people all day. I'm not going to take up much more of your time. I just want to thank you for being here, and I want to tell you how privileged I am to address you and share a few words with you. Thank you.
I'm Alan St. Pierre, Executive Director of NORML. Have you heard about the new super pot that's supposedly 20 times more potent than your father's Woodstock weed? Don't believe the hype. Marijuana's THC potency has always varied, even in the 60s and 70s. And the drug czar's numbers are full of, well, exaggerations. While no intoxicant is harmless, cannabis is non-toxic and far safer than alcohol. No matter how much you smoke, of whatever potency, you cannot die of a marijuana overdose. Potency is irrelevant anyway. More potent pot just means you smoke less of it, meaning less harmful smoke in your lungs. This is a prime example of harm reduction in action. Besides, the government already allows the prescription of THC pills. Its commercial brand name is Marinol, and it's 100% potent. Meanwhile, the federal government won't allow dying people to use natural marijuana, no matter what the potency. Does this make sense to you? Learn the facts about pot. Visit NORML.org today.
Variety Tuesday sees the return of the dynamic artist Tab with his great song, Peace Pipe, nominated in 2008's Marijuana Music Awards. Tab's music is a unique and interesting mix of hip-hop, trip-hop, and reggae. Tab made a name for himself in the underground hip-hop scene, later expanding into production. Production enabled Tab to experiment with new and complex sounds which have taken him beyond hip-hop, having introduced live instruments and samples of music of every genre into the mix. Tab recently formed the group The Dead Poets, creating a major buzz in the underground music scene. The Dead Poets have shared the stage with legends such as Immortal Technique and more. Tab has continued his solo projects, producing a number of solo albums, with the release of a new one in the pipeline. He continues to push the envelope on what is capable for underground hip-hop. With gritty beats and intelligent lyrics, Tab brings music with a message regardless of his genre. His sound will continue to grow as Tab strives to make music his lifetime profession. Keep updated about today's artist at myspace.com/DawnDarkZero. And registered stashers, you can get yourself an MP3 download of this tune. It's Tab with Peace Pipe.
Because I'm on my own, and I got something in my pocket, baby, come and take a ride and fly. She's over me, my thoughts start to roll, but I got something rolled up that'll put me back in the zone. Pass that to me, don't string me along. I got my eyes wide shut and I don't really know where we're going. And now we get alive. Don't bring a fight to my feet, fight. I'ma make everything alright. We go fly into the sunset. We're never coming down. You say you miss it and you're upset, but you never come around. And then he say, she say, never hold me down. I'ma hit the ground running at the same old town. Say goodbye.
Thank you for downloading the NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. We are produced by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. Our executive producer is Alan St. Pierre. Our deputy director is Paul Armentano. Our webmaster is Brian Judy. And web production is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. As always, you can catch up on the latest information about marijuana at www.norml.org. And you can interact and download from our Audio Stash blog at stash.norml.org. For everyone here at NORML, I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, hoping all your harvests are bountiful and your encounters with law enforcement are non-existent. We leave you today with a reminder that the next major NORML event coming up in June is the Aspen Legal Seminar in Aspen, Colorado. While this is an event that focuses on the NORML Legal Committee and criminal defense for marijuana, it is the only legal event that is open to the public. And those of you in NORML chapters out there, you could learn a whole lot about marijuana and the law by attending this seminar. It also features some fantastic social events catered by the chef from the exclusive restaurant Cash, Chris Lantos, and some of the best people you could ever want to meet in marijuana law reform. I'll be there giving you reports for the stash, but I'd love to see some other stashes up there as well. It's June 4th, 5th, and 6th up in Aspen, Colorado. Check out the NORML front page at norml.org and look for the Aspen Legal Seminar link for your information on how to register. Thanks for downloading the podcast and helping to make this the pulse of the cannabis community. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.